So as we discussed in our last clip, we talked about, of course, the description given by Benjamin Franklin as to the first settlers moving out onto the frontier, but of course also, there were also the long hunters who came beforehand. And some of these men were so enticed by the idea of the get-rich-quick scheme, if you will, of hunting the Virginia red deer for the hides. Of course, they're taking the summer hides because of that vibrant, rich, what they call red color. Kind of looks more like clay, as opposed to what we're so used to seeing when we go hunting today during the winter time, that brownish gray. But those hides, those were what these men were coming out to hunt. And in fact, a little bit of trivia for you folks, not that any bar will probably use this anytime soon, but if you happen to be out and about at a historic site and they mentioned that the deer skins had cost $1, just know that gradually it became known as costing $1. Obviously, after the male deer, the buck, and so that is where we get the expression today of something costing $1, costing $1. But the long hunters were coming out primarily to hunt the Virginia red deer. Now, of course, they also trapped and hunted other types of animals, raccoons, beavers, otters, you name it. And of course, bear was on the menu. Buffalo, they were on the menu, but surprisingly, the buffalo were not highly sought after at this time. It wasn't until the time of the western expansion onto the Great Plains that we see an increase in the hunting of the buffalo. So the deer is what we're going after. Now, these men, some of them, they knew that in 1 year of hunting out on the frontier, they could make more in half a year than they would by farming. And so some of these fellows, they would go out there without the necessary accoutrements and sign on to get those, work that debt off, and then continue hunting to make a profit. But of course, you would only make a profit if everything went right. And we have on record that Daniel Boone himself, he was robbed at least about 3 times by the Shawnee while hunting the interior of Kentucky. So despite the fact of the matter that a lot of these men they know that they are going to have to go out into the wilderness, far away from civilization and loved ones, they think it's worth it. And they know that they have to face all the hardships that nature can throw at them, whether it be the hostile Indians or, of course, wildlife. You could also have to deal with raging rivers or the ever-changing weather. A lot of these men still felt that it was worth it. And this is a sentiment that is perfectly expressed to us in the words of Daniel Boone. He says, first and foremost, that I confess I never before was under greater necessity of exercising philosophy and fortitude. The few days I'd passed uncomfortably, the idea of a beloved wife and family and their anxiety upon the account of my absence and exposed situation made sensible impressions on my heart. 1,000 dreadful apprehensions presented themselves to my view, and would have undoubtedly exposed me to melancholy if further indulged. Now, at this particular point, he is talking about the time that he is spending in the Kentucky wilderness by himself after the rest of the party has returned to civilization. Boone was known to go on long hunting trips. In fact, this is where we get the term long hunter. You are going away for weeks, months, even years at a time. And Daniel Boone was one of those who, if he could help it, he would like to be gone for years. He enjoyed solitude. But yet he did have a family. He had a wife and children to provide for. And needless to say, he was going to be worrying about them from time to time as he's out there on the Kentucky frontier. Now, we're going to discuss a few more of the things that Daniel Boone talked about and how he encapsulates the sentiment of a love-hate relationship being out in the wilderness quite perfectly in our next upcoming clip.